All right, so we're just leaving Pandora Diner, and the cold air feels good. I'm still not feeling good. The difference between an experienced mechanic and a non-experienced mechanic, I'm going to tell you the difference here. You ready? Somebody commented that I misdiagnosed the F-150 fuel pump wrong. No, we didn't. It was towed here for a no start. Multiple times they tried to start it before it went on the tow truck. And then when they got it off the tow truck, it still didn't start. So I just, my first attack was, let's hit it with some fuel through the throttle body, and we used brake clean to see if it would start. So it's really cold out this time of year, and it takes a lot of extra fuel to start your car on cold start. If you didn't know that, or you?
I didn't know that.
It takes a lot of extra fuel to cold start a vehicle than it does to take a hot start. Or if the ambient air is cold, it takes extra shot of fuel to get the car started. And if your fuel pump is weak in the wintertime, you may have a no start condition, and as soon as those temperatures change again, that the fuel pump is not putting out enough fuel and volume, that you may not even notice it, because it doesn't need that enrichment, and the computer knows how to enrich the car based on ambient air and coolant temperature. So we brake cleaned it into the shop, shut it off, see if it would start again. It wouldn't, and it took quite a bit of brake clean to get it to cold start. In the shop, the ambient temperature is like 65 degrees from teens. A couple extra squirts of fuel, it started right up, and then the vehicle continued to idle. This is where I already made my assumption that the fuel pump was bad, or the fuel pump is suffering. On the 13 F-150, it doesn't have the older style FDM, which is a fuel pump driver module that's in cast aluminum, and they crack and decay and break. Somebody said I misdiagnosed it. No, my experience with things like this, with specifically Fords and a lot of vehicles that are putting fuel pump driver modules under the vehicle, is typically when you have a 10-year-old vehicle, you have to know the history of the car. One, I know that this vehicle's been dipped in salt water many times.
This one?
No, my brother's car. But it doesn't change my diagnostic process. If a customer suspects a fuel delivery problem or fuel pump, or I suspect a fuel pump, we feed it fuel manually first and see if it'll run. If it doesn't run, then we know it's usually not a fuel delivery problem. It could be ECM exercise and pulse width modulation, or crank sensor, cam sensor, broken time and chain. Who knows? No different than when a customer comes in with a blower motor complaint or malfunction, and a quick pinpoint test for me is bang on the dashboard where the blower motor is, to see if the blower motor comes on. Typically, if it comes on, it's usually just a blower motor issue, usually, but it also could be many other things. And anytime that I do a blower motor, I always advise the resistor. And just like a fuel pump, the fuel pump driver module, you could say, is basically the resistor. It's varying voltage. I've learned over my years of working on cars is that when I find electronic issues that have the end result is a heavy load, and the connector is melted on the blower resistor or the pigtail for the blower motor, where did all that resistance come from? It comes from the load, meaning the pump or the blower motor. So if I just had a blower motor come on with me banging on it, I could say, hey, yeah, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, we could just do the blower motor, but the blower resistor is suffering at the same amount of time. And if it's melted, say the blower motor connector is melted, that circuit just in that short area needs service. Needs a blower motor, needs a pigtail, put a resistor in it. I've learned over the years there, when I tell customers that it's just a blower motor, and this is where my experience comes in, and then they come back a few months later with the same problem, that the resistor finally gave up. So anything that's in the 5-year-old area for a fuel pump, I would say, yeah, just put a fuel pump in it. But there's no misdiagnosing it. There's always underestimating the job. Always, right?
Yeah.
Always underestimating the job. That always happens. You'd say it's a water pump, and you go in there and 3 of the water pump bolts snap off in the engine block or the timing case cover. Is that just a water pump job? No. And I know certain vehicles are like that. that if I'm getting into a water pump with these little 6mm bolts, it could be an effing nightmare. So, like I said, the experienced mechanic knows his way around certain systems. Like, hey, yeah, fuel pump and fuel pump driver module, provided that the fuel pump driver module isn't outrageously expensive and needs to be reflashed and reprogrammed. Then I would make a judgment call on that and say, all right, yeah, well, is it problematic or not problematic? Is it just a FTM, or is it just a fuel pump? More diagnostic time would be required, but the experience that we have with certain vehicles, and you hear Eric always say the same thing, his experience, his knowledge based on his years of doing this is, yep, you should be doing a blower motor and resistor at the same time. If the resistor burned up, what put the load on the resistor? The fuel pump. Or, yeah, it's the same thing. Your FDM is basically a resistor, varying voltage. So if the FDM is bad from, a circuit problem, not from corrosion or water intrusion, then what was the load? The load was putting too much on it. And like I said, if the truck was newer, this truck's 2013, it's 2026 in a couple days. If I would have just did one without the other, it would have been wound up, towed back, probably at my expense. Then we'd have to tell the customer, well, if it's nothing we caused, you're responsible for the tow and additional parts. And then when I tell them, well, the fuel pump driver module went, they were like, well, you just did the fuel pump. Why didn't you do the driver module at the same time? I've heard that many times over my career. I would have rather just replaced everything so I didn't have a problem. Sometimes your experience and knowledge has to lead you in the right direction for a customer. And it's really advising the right things. Every vehicle is a different advisory. Just no different than this truck here. Would I want to change the transmission fluid on a Toyota Sequoia from 2004 with 319,000 miles on it that I don't know the history on? Absolutely not. Would I ever change the fluid on this?
Yeah.
Never. But if I knew the history on this car, I would advise it every 30K. Not even interested in dropping the pan. It's my experience. It's my knowledge. Says, yeah, you might want to just skip that process. Or touch certain things that are plastic. These Toyota Sequoias and a bunch of other engines that have been in service for 20, 30, 40 years with these 6mm valve cover bolts. And some of these Fords are like that too. We see these Fords where the coil bolts rust right off the valve covers in some Dodges. Why, when I have a customer that comes in with this specific engine with high mileage, even a smaller V8, and the valve covers are leaking, I'm like, this could be a friggin' disaster for you. You are talking broken bolts in the cylinder heads and tons of work over a small oil leak. So sometimes it's like, hey, it may not be worth your time. And sometimes it may be to some people. But for me, I'm like, yeah, we'll advise a customer to not, excuse me, not do this valve cover job based on our experience that the corrosion that we see already is telling me that be prepared for 30 broken 6mm bolts and tons of time and labor to get them out and replace them. So knowledge and experience fixes your car. And I'm sure some of the younger technicians out here who don't have the knowledge and experience may have just put a fuel pump in this car and sent it on away. They may have been all right, they may not have. Or, vice versa. The blower resistor's bad, put a blower resistor in it. Here you go, I'll give you a better one. Put an aftermarket blower resistor in this F-150 and it doesn't work after I already told my guys. Majority aftermarket blower resistors for these vehicles today don't work. They sell them, but they don't work. What did my brother tell me? He put an aftermarket one in already and it didn't work. I said, yeah, you need a factory one, dude. You did the same thing that they just went against the grain for me, saying, put an OEM one in there and we'll save ourselves a lot of problem. Problem was we couldn't get one and we relied on the aftermarket to update their technology and engineering, and they didn't. It's got the same problem. Now Jude, being the novice technician, told Rachel it needs a climate controller. I said, well, Jude, I could take you through all the diagnostic strategies of confirming that, but I'm not. I said, but if you have high-speed blower, that means the climate controller is bypassed on a different circuit and it's feeding the blower motor voltage. chances are it's just an incorrect or improperly designed aftermarket blower resistor. And I'll do a video Monday or Tuesday when we get the OEM one. But if you would have just said it need a blower resistor, right? And that blower resistor lasted a week or 3 months, and you're back again with another burned up blower resistor, Jew would be putting aftermarket blower resistors in from here to the end of his life because he doesn't know that the blower motor is the problem causing too much load on that circuit.
Wow.
A lot of techs don't know that part of, you know, that thought process. And I can't tell you how many pigtails that I've had to cut out on fuel pumps, blower control, blower relays, blower resistors, blower motors, because they're melted down from excessive load. And again, under amperage wires and circuitry. So that's how that goes here. Knowledge and experience fixes the cars, and I learned by, you know, say I do one wheel bearing, right? And then it's the same car, has 100,000 miles on it, or 150,000 miles on it, and it's got a bad front wheel bearing. And I check the other one and it's okay. Like, you know, there's a certain amount of sound that you can't hear that's emitted from a wheel bearing that just is not going to be audible to your human ear, depending on how good you hear. That I've seen customers come back in a few months complaining about the same noise. I got to tell them it's the other side of the car.
Yeah.
So that's why we advise in pairs when we're doing wheel bearings. And if we have a front one that's bad and a rear one, we're advising all four. Based on our experience, you will be back sooner than later for the same shit. It's not overselling. It's not misdiagnosing. It's advising the right repairs for the customer. Some people don't have that budget. Some people don't have that budget. So we have to advise the right way. And if the customer says, hey, you can't just do that, just like the exhaust patch customer, where they just need a weld or they just need a simple fix customer, and you're looking at a 20 or 30-year-old exhaust system that has failure points all over it, and they want you to do one piece of it. What happens when it hits the ground as soon as I touch it? Because you didn't have money for one repair. Now you need a whole exhaust system or multiple patches. So that's why we was like, nah, if you're not going to at least do the minimum way we want to do it, then we're not touching it. Take that someplace else. It's unfortunate we have to be that way, but that's the way that's the way it goes. I'm sure it goes the same way for contractors too. You know, they have someone come out for a roof repair. They're like, "Oh, it's only one roof tile that's bad on your 50-year-old roof." Yeah, they're not gonna try and patch in your roof for one roof tile. Never gonna happen, dude. All right, I felt I owed the world an explanation on why mechanics advise what we advise. And I'll just leave you on this note. If you have a 4-cylinder and it has 100,000 miles on it, and you have a misfire on cylinder 1, how foolish of the mechanic are you to just go in there and service one spark plug?
Right.
Times 6 times 8. Do the math. How foolish of that would it be of me to have the customers come back every other month for a misfire? Now, I've had some vehicles that were older, COP, coil on plug, that we advise all 8 coils and plugs at the same time. They say no, do onesie twosies. They're back every 3 months doing ones or twosies more. But that's the game they want to play, and I can only tell you that you should do it all at one shot. I know it costs a lot of money, but doing the job right the first time saves you money in the long run. And if there's a problem with it, all you do is come back and it's under warranty.
Yeah.
Pretty simple, right? Yep, you're going to come back and it's not going to be a cost as long as it's nothing else. Thanks for watching. It's time for me to hit my massage chair.